Welcome everybody to the Clear Tai Chi Mastermind meeting for Friday, March the 4th, 2022. And today's topic is going to be wave power, which is the subject that Daniel Hill will be teaching at the Clear Tai Chi International Family Gathering here in Maryville on June 2nd through 5th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so we're going to be, and what you'll see here for the next few weeks is that we're going to have each one of the folks who's going to be teaching, who are Clear Tai Chi regional organizers, talking about their topic, and we'll actually be discussing it and getting into it a little bit. And there will also be a number of other things going on at the Clear Tai Chi International Family Gathering. One of them will be a topic that is a group panel discussion. Last year, what we did was how to use Tai Chi specifically to work with folks who have COVID and to help them to not get their lungs locked up with COVID, and how to use it to improve the situation and your oxygen intake levels. And we were doing that based on having actually done it. So we weren't talking about things that were speculative. It was, we did this was the result. And so evidence-based, if you will, like that. We haven't chosen our topic yet. In fact, if any of you have a topic that you really would like to see, think would be very good for the bigger group, please contact us and let us know, hey, I would love to have the topic be on this. Once I get a few of those in, and or depending on what else comes up, we'll pick one, we'll put that in there. The other one is that we do have guest instructors coming, at least several right now, and they will be teaching various topics as well as the topics that you're going to hear on here. So that's the Clear Tai Chi International Family Gathering, June 2nd through 5th in Maryville, Tennessee. Be there or be there. Anyway, so.
And you can find out the latest about that event always at taichigathering.com, and you can sign up there too. And please share it with your friends,
family members and students.
Yeah.
All right. So Daniel, your topic today is wave power, and that's what you'll be teaching. And so if you would start us off. Actually, what am I saying? Sorry. Let me introduce everybody real quick. I almost forgot that. I'm Richard Clear, your resident host. This is Matt Holker. He is the regional organizer for Maryville, Tennessee, outside of Knoxville, Tennessee.
All right.
Welcome. Daniel Hill in Phoenix, Arizona.
That's right. Teaching wave here in the West Valley.
Welcome. Sheila Bell in Costa Rica.
Everybody, I'm in Guanacaste, pretty close to Nicaragua, northern Pacific region of Costa Rica.
Welcome. Art Don in the Washington, D.C. area.
Hello, everyone. I'm in Greenbelt, Maryland. That is 12 miles east of Washington, D.C.
Welcome. Harry Legg in Verona, New Jersey.
Hi there, Sifu. Yeah, about 15 miles away from New York City. And also have Paul Shansky, who teaches for New Jersey Tai Chi in Fairlawn, New Jersey. Thank you.
Okay. Philip Chan in Columbus, Georgia.
Hello, all.
Welcome. Ty Talbert in Colton, California.
Hello, everyone. I'm in Colton, California, about half an hour from Los Angeles with good traffic, and teach throughout the Inland Empire.
Jim Kelly in Boca Raton, Florida.
That's right, Sunshine State.
I'm guessing it's getting hot down there already. It's been 70 here.
Yeah, it's getting 70s, 80s. This is a nice time of year, though.
Mark Mashad in Michigan, and he's going to tell you what parts once he goes off of mute there. He may have to step away for a second. Okay, so welcome, Mark. All right, and so then, like I said, today's topic is wave power with Daniel Hill. Daniel, if you would start us off by talking about what you're actually planning to teach on or about regarding wave power.
All right. Well, we'll start off first with how I kind of got into Wave, which was at your Push Hands Level 2 workshop, which had just way too much information to take on at one point in time. But Wave stuck out to me as one of the more awesome things. So that very workshop I bought from Matt, the Wave DVD set, and was applying it into a lot of the Yichuan and other things that I was doing with you, Bagua. And it quickly kind of became one of my favorite skills. It's the reason why I have this waving picture behind me every podcast call. It's not just a coincidence. So with that, Wave is incredibly easy to see the offensive and defensive and health aspects of it. And one of the things that's very easy to teach to students early on. Of course, there's different levels of skill that go with that. But because I believe it's aspect in nature and physics with what a wave is, I think that's why people grasp it very easily. And I'd like to expand upon that with everybody and share with them all the things I've benefited from in that field.
Cool. Okay. So go ahead and get us talking here.
All right. First question I will pose to you all it's basically what comes to mind when you think of waving, such as things in nature, what things wave and why, what images or thoughts pop into your head. Sheila, let's start with you.
So there's a lot. There's
Isn't
a lot.
there?
For those of you who don't know, I studied marine biology. So along with the obvious in the ocean, we actually had to take a lot of science classes, and the number of waves it's infinite. The whole spectrum. I guess one of the things that impressed me most as I was studying was how the frequency of different energies made it be something like light or sound, or the different colors within the white light, and then electromagnetic waves from microwave through radio wave through, it's very fascinating. It's very fascinating. The way things are cyclical also, you can think of as being waves. There's all kinds of cycles that fascinate me.
Cool.
Fantastic. Art, you're next. What do you got for us?
Well, I think of wave as just in one sense, a pulsing transfer of energy, in the sense that a wave is continuous flow, of course, but if you measure it at a high point or a low point, it's really a pulse. So if you send an energy into a person and working with the wave, you could send the wave type energy, sort of a rise and fall type motion, to maybe cause one to lose balance or structure to move them. Or it could, if you just think of applying the high end of the wave push, it would manifest as a pulsing energy, sort of push, stop, push, stop, push, stop, to again affect balance and structure. So that's sort of what it means to me in a basic sense.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Harry, you're up next. Bring us some internal wave.
Thank you, Daniel. Well, wave means a lot to me in so many ways, kind of like Sheila, having spent decades on the radio. I'm used to being on the airwaves. So there's that. And being an audio producer, just looking at the waves on the screen and editing from them. But in regards to Tai Chi, I really love the power of waves. And they don't have to be big, huge crashing waves either. I love how even a small, subtle wave that you have running inside your body can reveal to you what's going on inside another person. It can catch them and trap them and all sorts of stuff. So that would be the quick response out of an enormous topic.
All right, fantastic. All right, Matt, what do you got for us?
Oh, well, again, I mean, waves are just everywhere in nature, and for everything from light to sound to, the ebb and flow of the ocean to all sorts of other things. And, the waving grasses in the field, or, waving of the trees or whatever it might be. There's all sorts of different things that wave. And to me, I guess just what fascinates me most about wave is that essentially what it is a shape that's an up and a down, or an on and an off, or it's got a duality to it that it fluctuates between, but it also does that fluidly on a curve. And by doing that, it allows for it, just by taking that sort of shape and that sort of flow, it allows for an extraordinary transfer of energy through matter. And it does it with, without necessarily displacing the matter or moving the matter with the wave, although sometimes something might ride along with the wave. But like in the ocean, the wave is moving through the ocean and the stuff is bobbing up and down because that wave is going through it, but the energy is transferring more or less cleanly along through there. It's losing a little bit to friction as it goes, but what's amazing to me about wave, and having experienced some of the wave power stuff, like in your own, in my own body, and in practical use that way, what's amazing is how easy it is to generate a wave and how much force really transfers or is able to transfer because of that, and how clean it is without any of that force really eating into you. If you're trying to shove something in on a straight line, it becomes really challenging to do that in a certain way without eating a lot of that force yourself. But waving it into something is a lot easier and a lot cleaner. And you see that all over in nature, just the way that moving things respond.
Excellent. Sifu, I'm going to save you for last and go to Phil next. Phil, you're on mute. Still on mute.
There we go.
There you go.
There you go. I'm sorry. So one of the things is that if you're teaching, teaching the wave skill is like a really nice thing to do early for students that are just learning, because it's one way to get them out of the stick man, very stiff way of moving, and getting into being more fluid. So it's a relatively easy way to transition from a very beginning level to the next level. And I think it's something that in level 1 is taught in the swimming dragon is one approach to it. So I just think it's very cool as a very early skill to focus on, because it has a lot of benefits and it gets people out of the mindset of looking like stick figures moving stiffly.
Excellent. Very good. All right, Ty, what do you got for us?
A lot of good things have come up, and I'm going to go ahead and segue from what Phil said about teaching. One of the things that I use for teaching it is using ribbons, the type of ribbons that are used in rhythmic gymnastics. And what I like about that is not only can you just describe what a wave looks like, you can give a visual representation of a wave and show how the wave can have greater wavelength, greater wave density, all those sort of things that you can talk about, but now you can physically show them. This is what a wave would look like, not only within your body, but outside of your body. Now put it inside of your body.
That's a wonderful concept. All right, if we can get Jim Kelly surfing on the waves to share something with us.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, this is a great topic. I've always been interested in maths and science, from an early age. And it's amazing how many waves there are, just throughout the world, or, all of the sciences. Of course, when we start out as human beings, the two obvious ones are, your heartbeat and your breathing cycle. And they're with you right from, the moment you're born, and, carry on through with life, just basic breath, breathing in, breathing out. It's all a controlled wave where you can fluctuate it, you can control the duration, you can control the pitch. So there's a lot to be said for that. And living down in Florida, especially when we do classes out on the beach, it's one of the easiest ways to explain to students and to get that concept, of tying rhythmic movement or wave action to your form, and carrying it through to the martial aspects of the Tai Chi. So great topic. Thank you.
All right, Mark, share something new with us.
So I had an internet issue. Can you repeat the question, please? I missed the question at the beginning.
All right. Well, the question was, what comes to mind when you think about waving? It could be things in nature, what things wave and why. What do you think about the waving Tai Chi skill?
Okay, yeah, that's pretty broad. One thing I wanted to say that jumped out at me when Sheila was talking about where it is all in the world, in the universe, is kind of a thought came to my mind, that the universe is kind of alive. You don't think of it in those terms, but because everything is waving is everywhere. And if those waves didn't exist, nothing would exist. Those vibrations and waves. Just kind of just as a, not to tangent too much, but just kind of an interesting thought, really. But when you think of, like, you look in one thing I always found interesting, and it's kind of a cliche almost, is the idea of dropping the pebble into a pond and then watching the ripples, right? And I think as an analogy for Tai Chi, that's very interesting. As far as I almost, when I think of like Ting, or when I'm looking in into a partner, looking for defects to be repaired, I think in those terms of the pebble in the water, where I will kind of insert a force into them, and then I see how it moves or doesn't move. You're getting that same kind of idea of the ripples or the waves through the body. I used to use a similar strategy years ago. I worked with juvenile offenders in a residential treatment facility. And when I would be doing rounds, going to check a unit, as I would walk up to the unit, I would stop about 10 feet outside the door, and I would close my eyes and get really quiet and listen. And I could tell by the sound coming out of the unit if it was chaos, if the staff could actually control the kids or not. I could tell where in the house the trouble was before I ever entered the door. Like what I was going into, I knew before I even walked in the door. And so that concept, the wave concept, I think is integral to the Tai Chi, whether you're thinking offensively or defensively, or health related or martial. It's the universe is alive. You can feel those things. It's kind of the sense, even, what Sheila was saying, even light has the waves, So.
And Mark, from a push hands perspective, you touched on something there that I really liked, and I want to flip it on its head also, because that the idea that you would kind of send a pulse or a shot or some kind of a line in, and then read the ripples through and the waves through their reactions is like, I gotta try that. I haven't really thought about it in that way. But one thing I have played a bunch with is kind of the other way around, is like almost like a sonar kind of thing on a submarine, where you send out a wave or send a wave in, or be using a wave and then ping off of the parts in them that are not able to move, or that are static or empty somehow.
Oh, that's what I meant. Maybe I didn't explain it well.
Okay.
That was-
Well,
that
what
was
you
exact- yeah, that's exactly
what
what
I
I
thought you said also, I think is interesting, and I'm going to play with it because reading the actual ripples through their body and not just kind of where they're stuck or not, I think that might have some value to it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get into that with some future questions in just a bit anyway. So keep thinking on that. Last but not least, Sifu Richard Clear. What do you think about when it comes to wave?
Lots of things. Where to begin, right?
right.
I usually think about some kind of action that if you were static still and you want to go to action, a lot of people will go from still and just move to the action. And what happens is that the highest amount of resistance that you're going to get is from not doing anything to doing something, whatever that something is. And so if I can wave first, I can relax into the wave and begin with movement that's happening because I relaxed into wave, and then use that to then form that wave towards whatever the action is I want to do. And so it becomes, instead of it being resistance, 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 okay, I'm in motion, now I'm starting to get there, it becomes I'm sort of melting or oozing or easing into the action beginning, and then I let that ripple form into whatever expression that I would want it to be or need it to be. And the more skilled you become at that, the less effort you're putting into whatever it is you're doing to get started, and then to actually do the thing that comes behind it, like that. And so there's a lot of applications to that.
Almost like dropping a pebble into your own pond.
Yes, yeah. And so, yeah, as you release your body like that, and that wave begins, then you're able to ride that wave into whatever the kind of expression is you want it to become. So, yeah.
Right. Wonderful. Well, I was expecting a lot more imagery from you guys, like birds' wings waving, or maybe from Sheila.
Well, you asked what
if a fish is not waving in the ocean, it's sinking. Same with a person. You have to wave against the wave and get into that, which is going to bring us into the next question anyway, which is what is wave as a concept? As far as physics goes, a wave, and Matt had touched upon this, a wave transports energy and momentum without transferring matter. That's the way it was described by Albert Einstein and Leopold Infeld in their book, Evolution of Physics. So, and a lot of you guys have touched upon the traits of wave already, but I wanted to focus on that for a while. And depending on the answers you give, I'm gonna pose a few other questions in there as well. So, Sheila, what are some specific traits of a wave?
That you like, or they might use. I would add that too.
Yeah, not all of them. We know you're educated.
Make it more
just one or two.
Yeah.
I feel censored. No, I'm just kidding.
You can put it any way you want.
I'm just teasing. No, I would say, referring back to my first answer too, the cyclical nature of waving is something that not everybody appreciates. A lot of times people think, it's a wave, but it's kind of like going from point A to point B. It's more of a, but if you look at a wave, from a stationary point, it's cyclical, right? So when Sufu was just talking about, as Matt put it, dropping a pebble into your own pond and then seeing those waves come out. I think, if you're just starting, you let Sung fall and then the Peng's rising and you have that in a wave motion, and then it's going to stay with you. It's cyclical. It's like little circles. So it's a wave, and it can express and it can come out and express, but it's always coming from within, right? So you get that same cycle, and it helps with the whole expansion contraction of your form, expansion and contraction, and you're cycling through and cycling through. And if you choose to put that into someone else, or, whatever you're planning to do with it, I think that's where I go with that concept.
Absolutely. So Sheila, where does a wave start? Where does it
Yeah,
end?
that's what as soon as Matt said putting a pebble into your own pond, I was like, and where does the pebble come from? And what is projecting the pebble? And what is it falling into? And that's a very, very good question. And, I don't have a perfect answer for that, but you can go all the way down.
It was
Yeah, let's ask Ant-Man. He's probably been there, right? What is the place that you can go as small or as big as you want? It's still going to be there. So does it start, or is it simply passing through? Cycling.
Exactly. Well, and that we're going to get to the application of that very soon. That question was rhetorical, but I do like what you added to it. Art Dawn, what are some traits of a wave? What makes a wave versus not being a wave?
Well, the wave has a high point and a low point, and of course it is traveling through all the values of the area it's going through from a point from high to low. But I think of it in terms of, well, functionality for push hands, for example, using it with working off the high point of the wave, giving just a little more energy to upset the balance of a person, maybe give them a push they weren't ready for to move them a bit. And at the low point, the weaker point of the wave, that could undermine the stability of the person you're pushing hands with by sort of weakening the structure, just causing maybe even a slight collapse to then give you the advantage to work them in that way. And of course, another way would be to work with the wave as a whole and have the wave come in and then emit the wave that just uses the high and the low point to move the person that way, just waving them through the way. For example, an analogy of a wave in the ocean pushing a person over.
Very good. Well, with what you were saying about high points and low points, one of the questions I was hoping I'd get to ask somebody if they answered that way is, at what point in the wave, high points and low points, at what point does a wave absorb and receive?
Oh, the wave, as I...
All of it. It absorbs at all different points, high, low, middle, everywhere. At what point does a wave return the force or have power in it?
Well, again, from your answer, you could say at any point that it's always going. But I was thinking more in the sense of, if the wave is at the low point, it is building up and sending the energy in to cause sort of a rising and motion in the other person that way. And at the high point, the energy would, while still having the power, would be a downward energy to maybe weaken or pull down the person, again, just sort of affecting their alignment and structure to make them more easily movable.
Absolutely. Very
I wanted to wait until the end, but I'm going to add this now because there's something, Sheila, something you were wrestling with based on the question a little bit. Art, you were as well. And I'm thinking most people will have this issue. And that is that for whatever reason, most people the vast majority of people. And I think it's just a development issue of how we are in our thinking, like linear thinking as opposed to more spatially based thinking and that kind of thing, is that we are very used as people to thinking about fixed points, something that's very, very finite and very, for lack of a better word, defined. I don't mean defined like explained. I mean defined like it's right there, and then it's right here, and then it's right there, and it's very fixed like that. And what's interesting through the movement of a wave fully is that it's a continuity that is not about a fixed point, and there's a point of interaction with whatever object or force or whatever else is being interacted with that becomes a fixed point of interaction briefly, but that it's fluidly in motion as a continuous whole. And so you have to take it in a much more 3D or 4D, actually, in terms of how I think about that, maybe 5D dimensions being what the D is, the kind of an interaction. And so it becomes a lot more fluid's not really the word I'm looking for as much as
Dynamic.
well, I'm talking about spatially being an area and a volume as opposed to a fixed point. And so it becomes a little bit hard for most people because we tend to speak typically about things in terms of like fixed points in this. And for a waving and an action that has volume like that, there can be the different fixed points. There are things happening, but that the action overall and its effect overall isn't so much a fixed point as much as it is a much more thorough. It's a bigger picture, a more continuous not being the word I want to use, because you could get continuous words point. And in this case, it's a dynamic. Was that the word you said? It's this dynamic being okay, but really I'm talking about is very much more comprehensive than any one point in the thing. And so it becomes hard when you're not used to using language where you're talking about things in their whole, in their bigger picture, to talk about it because of that tendency to want to talk about fixed points. So hopefully
I think too, because it's it recalls to mind a story that my brother-in-law said. He went diving at night and they gave them flashlights. They were expecting to see sharks. And he said, for some reason, as soon as they saw a shark, his first instinct was to turn off the light. And they said, well, that was dumb. I don't know where. Now I don't know where it was. It's like he was hiding because the shark wouldn't be able to find him without the lights. Like, they have other senses.
Sharks
But
are just fine. You're just not going to see the shark anymore.
Right. And the sharks live in this three-dimensional, environment. We, even though we say, we live in a three-dimensional environment, but we live on a flat surface. So it's this completely different really being a 360-degree, three-dimensional aqueous substrate that fish and sharks are used to getting around in.
Used to operating.
And we're used to, even if it's three-dimensional, it's pretty much a flat surface where we live.
Well, and part of what
so there's this whole other concept and vocabulary for dealing with something like that.
So we're stuck to the ground. If we could fly and easily flew and everything we did, we were floating and moving around in three-dimensional space the whole time, then it would be different. But we have a fixed point of contact to the ground. And so we're used to thinking in terms of that kind of a fixed point. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Sifu. What you had said brought up 2 points that I wanted to touch upon, which is another definition of wave is a disturbance that travels through a medium. So that point of interaction that you talk about would be that point of disturbance where the wave travels through it. Furthermore,
disturbance to the receiving thing or person or force or whatever it is. And I would say that it's only a disturbance to the wave if the wave somehow discontinues being a wave. And so it's really not the thing as much as the effect of the thing after it's had an action after an occurrence, an event of some kind through the wave. Does that make sense?
That sure does. That's why I'm writing it down. All right. One more point you had made, which I was going to touch upon with art, is that there is not any fixed point, but as far as teaching and practicing Tai Chi, wanting to be in the now state, a lot of people think of the now as a static and finite point. With wave, it is a constant and dynamic, continuous state of now, rather
Yeah, it's what a
than
surfer has to
something.
do. It's what a surfer has to do, and I'm sure other sports as well, other activities as well, is that if somebody goes and they're very stuck on fixed points, as soon as they start to get up on the board, they're in the water, because that is a continuum, not a fixed point.
Excellent. All right, I will restate the question now for Harry Legg. What are some traits of wave, or what is wave as a concept?
That you like, or
What defines a wave?
Sure, that defines a wave. Well, we've talked about a lot about the continuous flow. We all have wave already in us because we're vibrational beings, and vibration is wave. So that goes to kind of what you also asked Sheila, where does a wave begin? Well, we already have waves going on in us, but then can we generate more? Can we use our mind to focus wave, make it a really tight wave, make it a wide wave, anywhere in between?
Harry, let me weigh in on that for a second. So to give you an idea, somebody could say vibrational being, a lot of people would go, oh, okay, yeah, and woo, and I'm saying to that, our brain works in waves. It does not normally stay at a fixed point. Our heart, like you were talking about, whoever it was that said it before, has this rhythm to it. Our body cycles, our sleep cycles, are anything that you're going to think about doing. Your blood flow through your body is a continuous cycle. Your high and low ebbs throughout the day are a continuous cycle. The Chinese meridian system for doing the acupuncture, that is a cycle where there's a flow through, and that flow changing and all of that. And so all these things flow and vibrate and have when I say vibrate, I don't mean they're just oscillating, but a flow to them that is fitting what Harry just said. So there is science there. It's not like some mumbo.
Yeah, this isn't meant to be woo-woo garbage. What I'm talking about is science. Is you could take the drywall on your wall, and there is a frequency to it. And science proves that. So I'm not trying to, when we say vibrational beings, and
a decay rate and all that, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. So what I like, I briefly mentioned this, I think in my first response earlier on the podcast, that I like how a wave can be very revealing to me. So if I'm pushing hands with someone and I'm running a little wave through them, that wave will assist me, my ting, my listening or perception ability, to feel where they have issues inside their body, where there is that tension, where something's stuck or stagnant. And so I will use wave in that manner. I will also use it, again, using push hands as the laboratory, to always be in movement in a way that may not be obvious. So when we talk about fighting, I think, many of the people that may be watching this and or listening to this podcast are familiar with a famous YouTube clip of the supposed Tai Chi master who stood there perfectly still in a pose, and then the MMA guy came and pounded the living crap out of him. So I think we all know, anyone that knows how to fight, you don't stand still. You are always in motion. So even though I may be pushing hands with someone and I look really placid and really still, and you don't visibly see anything, if I have some internal, because it is an internal art, wave running through me, which I learned to do because I practiced wave externally, physically moving my body in a wave, so that then I could taper that down, taper that down, taper that down, to where you don't see that physical movement very much, if at all. That's running inside me. So the second my push hands partner or opponent goes to move, well, bam, I'm there. That wave can catch them, and it helps me that much more. So that's one of the things that I really like using wave for.
Fantastic. All right. Next, we have Phil. What is wave as a concept, or what traits does it have or not have?
So I was thinking, there are a couple of traits, and there are different types of waves. But one trait of a wave, I think it can be sustained over time and distance with very little effort. And the second thing is that if you think of a whip, that's a type of wave action. And with that, you get movement in one direction and then an explosive change in the direction at the very end. And then the third thing is, and it's related to some of the other things people were talking about, but we don't often think of it, but we use it in some parts of Tai Chi, is that volume can expand and contract in a wave movement. That there can
I
be a
like that.
wave quality to expansion and contraction. So, so the volume of the body, there are lots of movements where the body expands and contracts, and normally that would be done in a wave, electric and magnetic, probably expansion and contraction within joints. So there are lots of places that would come into effect, and it's not something you think about often. So anyway.
Fantastic.
Cool. Yeah.
I like that a lot. Ty, you're up next. What can you say that hasn't been said?
Well, it could just be what is it? What is it for me for that question? What is waving as a concept, and it's how do you relate to it? You know.
Well, probably the only thing I can say that hasn't been said, and maybe it's been said in a different way, is that although waves do have a continuum, that I found that I can aim a wave for it to, as it was mentioned by Phil, to have an endpoint, like I'm using a whip. So I can either, when I'm trying to be kind, when I'm doing something using a wave, I don't want that wave to end the person's body. I want it to continue through them. And if I want to give them a little bit more, I will go ahead and end it in them. And if somebody doesn't have a lot of ting, then I will end it on the surface, because that's the easiest way for them to feel that wave. So I use it 3 ways when I'm teaching.
Cool. Yeah.
Fantastic. Mr. Jim Kelly, what do you got for us?
You know, it's funny how some of these things touch so close to the classroom, you know, teaching. On Tuesday night, we had a class, and one of the members brought their spouse, and he was sitting on the side watching, and he works in the construction industry, truck driving and all of this. And we went over the concept of, you had mentioned before, of where a wave starts and where it ends, and the whole concept of creating waves during the Tai Chi form. And I had demonstrated, you know, that a simple grab is a very short wave. And then to go back to a strike, most people without a whole lot of training, they just tend to strike with their arm, or their, at the best, a bicep muscle or forearm muscle. And as we demonstrated the form, how the Tai Chi form is almost made so that you continue to increase the wave of the duration of the wave, where, you know, you move your hips and that carries up through the arm, through the shoulder, and out through the hand. Or you use your whole body, where you're shifting your weight, you're turning your ankle, you're bending your knee, you're pivoting on the heel. These are all things in the form that increase the sine wave or the height and pitch of the wave. And I worked it all back all the way down to the heel, and even gone through a little bit of what Ty just mentioned, where the wave then doesn't have to stop at the palm of the hand or the point of impact. The wave continues traveling on either into the person's body or past the body if you want to turn the wave into a push or a shove. And on the opposite end, the beginning of the wave, when you deal with the concept of root, is it possible to start a wave in your root and work it up through the body and then out, through the hand or whatever you're striking with. So, but the most interesting point I wanted to make is, even for a novice or somebody who hasn't seen the Tai Chi before, I noticed that he was watching, it was funny because he wouldn't watch directly. He was watching through a mirror, one of the mirrors in the school. And afterwards, I'd asked, what he thought about the class. And he actually mentioned that it was an amazing concept. And then the following class, he had sent his wife back. He had asked her questions about the whole concept of the wave and the strike and generating force from the heel or the hip, and how that whole wave concept worked, how it was incorporated in the Tai Chi, and how it translated to physical power in the martial sense. So, but again, very close tie to the teachings of Tai Chi and the concept of wave, and how even a novice can see it once you break it down and explain it. So,
Could I ask you something of you, Jim? So I think you've had the opportunity to use Tai Chi principles in more actual hands-on physical confrontations with uncooperative people, not training partners, but criminals of one sort or another. So maybe you could talk a little about the concept of waves as you actually use it on the street.
yeah, there's the beautiful thing about the whole concept with the wave is, like Ty had touched upon, there is a gentle wave or an ebbing wave or more of a persuasive wave. There's the forceful wave that has a little bit more to it, and then there's the actual, it's an intended hurtful way to use wave. And when I first discovered Tai Chi, I was enamored with it because in the beginning of my career, I just used the basic concepts. I didn't even realize that the whole connection with wave as a force or a punishment. But the opposite side of it, as Harry touched upon, is the healing concept of the wave. Being able to go into your body or be able to go into somebody else's body and feel an ailment or pain or a disruption in their wave patterns. It's a huge topic and a concept that has so much depth to it. It's hard to go over a whole lot of it in just this podcast. So, but is that what Phil, your question had been?
I think Phil was hoping for more action stories, Jim.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You're a
For those of you who
vibrator.
For those of you who don't know, Jim Kelly is the #1 police officer in Boca Raton, Florida. So he gets to use all these Tai Chi concepts whenever the situation calls for it.
I'm particularly fond of the naked guy in the mango tree. Jim's allergic to certain aspects of mangoes. And the Tai Chi principle is required to get that dude out of the mango tree and into the station where he belongs.
Yeah, that was probably the best demonstration of wave. And, I don't know if it pays to go into the story on podcast, but
It makes it definitely keeps the viewers or the listeners' interest. I'll say that.
but yeah. So I'm sorry. So it's okay to repeat this story then on pod?
It depends on exactly what was waving in the story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the what Sifu refers to is I had called him up one day after having an encounter, because for the longest time I couldn't figure out the martial application of the Yang style, the movement of turning the prayer wheel, which is just basically this, and hands on jaded table from the clear.
Rise and fall or place hands on the table.
And I was laughing because, as Sifu said, I had a call and there was a naked man hiding in a mango tree, and for the life of me, I tried to talk him out of the tree, and I tried to, and he was going into all kinds of eminent domain, spouting all kinds of that was his tree house, and I had no right to search or seize from his tree house. and at one point it just came so naturally that his right ankle and his right wrist were just within grasp, and my hands went up and I grabbed him by the ankle and by the wrist, and that simple waving motion just lifted him off the branches of the tree, and I was able to bring him down to the ground.
This is what Phil was looking for, by the way.
Well, and the funnier part was I knew enough to take the upper part of his body to get the handcuffs on. My partner wound up with the lower part of the body with all the interesting.
Yeah.
So, but now so yes, the wave concept repeats itself, and it does offer itself in martial applications. You just have to seize the moment, I guess.
All right. Now we've got Mark. What is wave as a concept? What does it mean to you? What are the traits of a wave versus traits of not having a wave?
Before I answer that, actually, I had a question for you and anybody else out there, actually, from when you were talking to Art and you were asking him the question about, about the wave, right? So I realized when Sifu was talking that I have a tendency when we're talking about wave to think of it like in a physics book where it's a two-dimensional XY type graph, right? Which can lead to some probably some wrong thoughts as to how it works if you're thinking two-dimensionally. And so my question was, on the wave, is the power transfer, the power level the same at every point in the wave between the crest and the trough? So what I mean is, like, so for example, would the crest or the trough be more powerful? Or
I would rather Sheila
really
answer
powerful through
this,
the whole thing?
but what I will tell you from my limited knowledge on the actual science is that it's not that at any point of interaction would it be less, it's different.
Okay.
This actually goes pretty much to what I was.
Does that sound right,
say
Sheila?
about it, but
Does that sound right, Sheila?
Well, the momentum of a wave would be the same throughout.
It's just
Yes, it would be the same throughout.
yeah.
There's interesting things that happen when waves interact. So if you've got one coming this way and the other's coming this way, they cancel each other out, right? But if one's coming this way and the other's coming this way, it actually gets twice as deep. So the trough and the peak can be changed if there are two waves coming to interact. So I don't know if that may be what you're thinking of, Mark, but But yeah, no, it should be the same on any point of the wave. You may find that different points of the wave are more effective depending on how they're interacting with, a change. Like a wave that goes through air and then it goes through water, it changes. So if you're trying to put it into someone, there may be a better angle, so to speak.
Okay.
But the wave as a scientific thing, it's not going to be different at any particular point.
Okay, yeah, I realized that because I think of it along the lines of the two-dimensional graph kind of thing, in my mind, you think of it almost like a strong weak, and I realized it probably was incorrect, the thought.
If you had a peak and a trough, I mean, one of them's going to float you up and the other one's going to pull you down. And so
Right.
and if you were towards the center somewhere, like somebody who's skiing, not skiing, surfing, it may be holding you towards place, but it's still moving you. And so the amount of power, it's in a certain kind of way, or the potential, the action. Again, I'm not having the right words here. That's going to be equal, but the effect is going to be different in each of those places.
Mark, a useful teaching concept for that is thinking of it like a yin yang, where it's maybe instead of more vertical, having it more horizontal. Which is stronger, the yin or the yang? The one that's going over, the one that's coming under? There really isn't one that's stronger or weaker, and they are going to change eventually from one to the other. That's something that usually helps as a teaching concept, since the yin yang is pretty well known to everybody. Physics, maybe not so much.
Yeah. In relation to your question, I guess one thing that'd be different from what other people maybe have talked about is the relationship between vibration and wave. Because like if you look at like a good example would be like Uncle Bill's push hands.
Yeah.
Where you feel for the feet, that little
Real seriously
micro
internal,
movements.
yeah.
Yeah, that starts the vibration. If you listen, you feel the wave, you feel how it displaces through the medium, and you take them, you just kind of carry them where they want to go. So the relationship between the vibration and the wave is interesting. Feeling their micro movements, and then feeling how it moves, what the movement is in it. Another thought too. I was going to ask you about this was that would probably be a similar concept with like breathing, like when you catch their breath. They have a natural breath, but you feel the movement, like the direction of the wave of how it affects the body, the act of breathing, the effect on the tissues around it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, that applies to pretty much anything you target in the body. If you're targeting their digestion, or you targeting the expansion or contraction of the smooth muscles of the stomach, or pretty much anything you want to target. The way the bone marrow is flowing through the bone, or the way the fascia contracts and expands, catching it at any point in that wave or ripple.
So then,
last
question,
but not least, go ahead.
Can I ask you one more question then in relation to that?
Go for it.
Okay. So then can you use let's just say digestion, let's pick that. There's a vibration there. It's creating a wave, if you're aware of it. Can you capture that natural vibration in your body and use that to affect the other guy?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
You have natural vibrations in your body, which are taking place, which are creating natural wave functions in your body, whether it's digestion or your heartbeat or breathing, right? And so my question is, if you can become very conscious of the wave that's being created by your digestion, for example, can you take that and utilize that to be the driving force for affecting the guy or moving it?
Yes, you can ride that wave. You can ride any wave if you can have the good team to connect to it.
And your practice.
All right, I do believe
And you know how to channel it into whatever other mediums you want to express it through. Your
Thank you.
peristalsis alone is not going to push someone unless you find a way to direct it, and probably magnify it quite a bit.
Well, the first question is, can you ride with it
Uh-huh.
on that? Because if you can't do that, then the other problem is not happening either. You're going to fight with it too much.
All right. Well, I do believe for that question, I skipped over Matt. If you have anything you want to
Stephen
share.
just stole my slot, but well, I kind of answered this question the first time instead of the first question I was supposed to answer. And so it logically, it makes sense that my answers in my head would be flipped for this. But so for me, what's kind of amazing or impressive about Wave that stands out in a noticeable way is that we don't really have good experience of the wave itself. What we typically see, Sifu kind of alluded to this, is the result of the wave. We see the matter being displaced by the wave. And then if you look at like a lake, for instance, I grew up in Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. If you look at a lake, you see the wave on the surface. But what you don't realize most of the time, what we don't kind of think about, is that wave is expressing through the entire mass of that water. All of it is being displaced, and we see the results on the surface where there's like a distinction between water and air. But throughout the water, those waves are moving and rolling and flowing through. Pardon me. And they're happening in 3 dimensions, and they're interacting with each other. If you've ever been on like a boat in a lake, like fishing or whatever, even in a mild kind of chop, the waves can toss the boat in a way where if you're not really responsive to that and letting the wave play through your body, it's going to kick you off the boat. And I've seen people go over it like that before. I probably have once or twice when I was young. And so that to me is one of the other amazing qualities of wave, is that it because it is so fluid and because it is constantly moving between these sort of, let's call them yin and yang states, but it's always flowing like that. The wave becomes very responsive to whatever else is in its environment. So if there's something like a boat floating on the water that can kind of roll with the waves, it will tend to do that. But if the waves are going back and forth in such a way that they get emphasized kind of the wrong way on the wrong side of the boat, it can tip it up a little kind of extra. The wave didn't do any more. It wasn't suddenly more powerful. It was just that sort of perfect angle and momentum and the way that things were tossing at that particular moment when it crashed in. Similarly, if there's rocks in the water, the waves will flow around those rocks. But if they are in a kind of a position where the wave is rolling into it, it'll crash into those rocks, and it ends that force, or it really sends that force into that medium, and it'll tend to erode it and other things. And the wave is really, my point in mentioning all this is that for real like martial use or healing use or any of the uses of like body wave and Tai Chi, it's really highly functional, because typically our bodies can generate wave, and we can kind of work on being able to express that quality through our bodies more and more. And as you control that more and more, as you maintain control of that, and you feel that fluid kind of changing, waving state through your body, you can use that wave to cause these other effects just because it's coming at the right angle and the right time and the right way. And it changes very easily and fluidly, constantly, so that if you wanted to push this way, but it's not working, if you're waving, the wave will tend to flow around whatever impediment was there and come in at exactly the right angle to catch whatever the thing is. And that's where it picks it up. And the better you can wave, and the better you can receive wave, and the better you, like if you took impact, the better you can wave that out through your body and turn that into a wave that you're a part of and that you're controlling, the harder it is to really disrupt your system, and the easier it is for you to disrupt other systems or influence other systems, and disrupt them if it's martial, or use it to for healing purposes and influence systems that way and get flow increased and improved in certain areas and that kind of thing. It is very, very natural and easy to do. It is, I have found, in terms of internal power expressions, it is one of the easiest to sort of generate and wrap my mind around and actually use right out of the box. It's just very powerful that way, because it just has so much going on for it and in it, because it is that constantly changing dynamic thing.
Excellent. Wow. You hit so many points on Tai Chi fighting right there.
Don't resist, don't insist.
Yeah, and a wave does neither.
All right. Well, I got one or two more questions depending on the time that we have remaining on our call.
Let's start with one.
Well, so before we do the next part there, remember that this class for waving will be one of the 18 to 20 classes or so that we're having at the Clear Tai Chi International Family Gathering on June the 2nd through 5th in Maryville, Tennessee. And the website for that is
TaiChiGathering.com.
And please check it out and avail yourself and plan to come and bring the family and all that good stuff. There will be a banquet on Saturday night. That's when we'll be doing the panel discussion as well. And it'll all be at the Airport Hilton here in Maryville, Tennessee. TaiChiGathering.com.
Many of our Clear Tai Chi regional organizers and member schools present and teaching, including our very own Daniel Hill, teaching Wave live and in person. Anyway,
that's right.
Back
Everyone
to
get ready to punch each other. All right. So I suppose for the next question, we can go over, for all of you regional organizers, a little bit about more your personal experience with Wave, how you prefer to practice it, the effects it's had on your health and training. If you don't have much in that, you can also go with how you first learned it and the way it was taught to you by Sifu Clear. Sheila, let's start with you.
So I love everything about the water. And so one of the really interesting things you can do with Swimming Dragon is try it in the pool. Try it in the pool and see how, a little bit like Ty was talking about, the ribbons that you can use to show what's happening with the wave. Also, if you do it in the water, you're going to feel the water, the way the water's influenced by your movement, and it just ripples across the skin. It's very, very interesting and nice. Swimming Dragon is fun to do on land as well. As far as my favorite things to do, I think that qualifies. And ever since the water method that we took in New Jersey in October, I've really been having a lot of fun with bringing it in no matter what else I'm doing, there's a little ripple going through. The wave has permeated my style. So yeah, good stuff.
All right, excellent. Thank you for sharing. Art Dawn, how do you like to practice Wave and how has it affected your training?
Excuse me. I like to practice the wave, and of course, first I practiced it physically because I had to get the physicality of the wave motion, and I started that with not in the form itself, but just in sort of a maybe seaweed in the water type motion of just loose limbs and body moving fluidly and sort of evenly, which helps maintain connection in the body, which of course is important. But as I became more able with that, I could incorporate the wave motion in doing the form. And after a lot of practice with both those, I could generate the wave internally and just work with different aspects of it there, moving it through my body different ways, and using it for sort of sensing conditions in my body and in a push hand sense, using it to try to affect the structure and balance of the person I'm pushing hands with, or to move the other person. So that's more or less a practice and how I would have tried to apply it practically.
Excellent. Thank you. Harry Legg, share with us some push hands.
You assume it's going to be push hands? Come on, Daniel. Just because it's me. Well,
Absolutely.
I was gonna also say how I got into Wave and whatnot. So it's stair stepping, baby steps, like everything. This is probably around about a decade or so ago. I'm in Tennessee training. We're doing our Tai Chi Level 1 Basic Skills Program. And as Art mentioned, the seaweed, or I think we also call it waving moss, where we're purposely for those that are watching the video of this podcast, those that are listening, you won't see this, but we're purposely waving around this way as we do our form to learn to open ourselves up and loosen ourselves and find the roundness in the form and get rid of the stutter stops that you have when you're first learning and all those sorts of things. And I was a new student back then. I don't think Sifu even knew what my name was. And out of the lineup of about 20 people, he goes, "You, come here." Because apparently I was like the stiffest looking person in the line of 20 people doing this. And he goes, "Kind of stiff, aren't you?" And of course, you don't realize how stiff you are until it's really pointed out or you see video of yourself. And he goes, "We're going to fix that right now." I'm like, okay. And he starts rapidly pinching me everywhere. And I'm going, "Ooh, ow, ow, ooh, ow." And he goes, "Oh, you can move, can't you?" I'm like, okay, all right. And so I know that's on a video somewhere. I've never seen it. I don't think I want to, but others may have. So that was the very raw beginning of my loosening up in a way that I hadn't thought about or knew to do before. But then, it progresses, and I'll do my best Vanna White here for those watching the video of the podcast. It began with this program, the Wave of Internal Power. There's one of the DVDs, yes. So anyway, that is basically his beginning, introduction to Wave, and I took that course and then continued to practice what I learned in that, and then it moved into the water fighting method, which is all about wave as well. And I was fortunate to take that workshop when we managed to do it during COVID back in March of 2021. And then I had the honor to host Sifu here in New Jersey, and we repeated the bulk of that workshop here in New Jersey this past October. So I've gotten a nice amount of wave in the last year or so and continue to work it. And kind of as I already said in my previous question and answer a little while ago, I love using wave and push hands to feel what's going on inside of another person in a different sort of way, and to use that to catch them. One of the things that I do quite regularly, in fact, almost without fail, every class, unless I'm just doing something that's I know is going to take the whole class, with my senior citizen students and frequently with my other, age students, is we just wave is part of our warm-up before we begin. And I have a few basic patterns that I make sure that they do. And then I say, okay, guys, just freestyle it. Have fun. Move your body. Don't just make it limbs. Get that torso involved. And everyone always feels so very good after that. And then after just waving, sometimes it'll be all right. Let's just keep that quality going and let's just go through form. Go ahead, have fun, enjoy, self-discovery there. And so that's a big part of how I learned wave and continue to, and how I use it with my own students.
Cool.
Fantastic. I was hoping someone would bring up just the exercise of the wave, because that is something I like to do pretty much anytime I feel even the slightest bit of stiffness or just waking up in the morning. That's part of why I have this picture is a big reminder for me. It's like, Oh, wake up. Oh, look, that's a nice natural wave. And just keep that going throughout the day. All right, Matt, how do you practice it, or how did you learn it? How does it affect your training?
I learned Wave really for the first time at the Wave of Internal Power workshop that Harry was mentioning earlier. That was actually at Harry's house. And then I also did the water fighting workshops, both the one in 2021 in March and the one in New Jersey at Harry's. And I love Wave. I've loved it really since that workshop. The first one, the Wave of Internal Power workshop, really since then, several years ago now, I immediately just fell in love with that. For me, it's very intuitive, but it also not only we've been talking a lot about kind of the physical use of Wave, but it also is one of those skills that I find is easy for me anyways to internalize and get a lot of almost Jing level expression out of it pretty early on in my training with it, that I don't have to be really moving externally a whole lot to be able to really use and express Wave power pretty easily. And I love it. I love push hands. I use it a lot in push hands. I use it in my sparring method now. I'm working on like wave fighting stuff for real use, for self-defense. But my primary use of Wave is not for that. It's for my own kind of self-healing and self-check, where I will wave. I like to wave through my body, either just in kind of spontaneous motion and free form, or a lot of times in the Tai Chi form. And what I find is that it really helps me to find trouble spots very easily. If there's a gap in my structure, it's very hard for a wave to flow through that gap because the gap kind of deadens it. If there's an extra tension in my structure, it's very hard for a wave to flow through that tension because the tension kind of grabs it and wants to lock up that momentum. And so that constant movement and that constant rippling and that constant flow, the better I can control it and at the same time be sensitive to it, the more trouble spots it helps call out for me and gives me an immediate fix for it. Like I can just keep waving through it over and over again until it fixes the problem. And I have to be a little bit mindful of what that problem might be and why, and a little bit sensitive to that. But mostly the wave, as long as I'm really doing it very proper and really extra feeling and being mindful of like, am I really getting the wave through these parts? And is it really moving all the way through me the way it should be? It'll catch areas that I wouldn't have noticed almost any other way doing almost any other thing. And it calls them out to me and helps me fix them like right away in real time.
Fantastic. All right, Mr. Phil, you are up next. Dr. Phil.
Yeah. So, I've been doing Tai Chi really a long time. And it was only when I started working with a level 1 DVD set and working with Swimming Dragon that I actually started working with waving. So that was my introduction to waving. And I use it in set practice. And one of the things that I'm working on now is I'm working on developing iron power, the iron quality, and also poison hand. And there's a wave quality to both of those.
For the iron quality, you're talking about steel wrapped in cotton, the golden belt, not the other kind. So yeah.
Right. So right. Anyway, so there's a wave quality to both of those that I'm trying to develop better. And one of the interesting things about wave is, and one of the reasons that it's really fun to train in Tai Chi is because sometimes skills transfer into the rest of my life. So one of the things is that I do West Coast swing, and there are body rolls in West Coast swing that are very similar to waving. So, so there's been a double dividend. And the other thing, and probably Matt would probably talk about it more effectively than I do. One of the interesting things is when Matt had COVID the first time, he had a lot of problems with body aching and it was hard to breathe. And waving was a way that he learned that he used to loosen the muscles up and then also allowed him to breathe more freely and probably prevented him from getting atelectasis, which is collapse in parts of the lower parts of the lungs. And that's really an important thing to avoid it with something like COVID. So maybe Matt, you want to talk a little about that since I don't want to steal your thunder and you can talk about it more detailed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying just a second ago. Honestly, it's the same idea, except that in that case, when I had the COVID, it was my body was like wanting to seize up and my muscles were getting these achy, crampy kinds of things going on where a lot of extra kind of residual tension was getting locked into my body. And so instead of working on like structural errors in that, I was really trying to wash out tensions, and some of them were known where it was like, yeah, my body hurts right there right now, and I knew that it was like extra kind of tense that way. But some of them were not so obvious until I started waving and trying to wave, and then it was like, ooh, no, that spot in my back really doesn't want to move. That's interesting. And then I had to sort of go from there and work on like what is causing that. Have I been in a funny position too long? Have I not moved that spot in too long? Is it my muscles are tensing up right there and I didn't realize it until now, or like what's going on? And then by doing that and sort of pinging off all the little trouble spots in my body, and then really just insisting on continuing to wave and relax and just let that wave action kind of do its thing, it helped me to really get my mind around where the problems were and help to ease them up until I was able to like really flow through all of those spots. And then again, the whole body breathing became a lot easier at that point, which was the bigger part of the kind of the method that we talked about at the panel last year at the Tai Chi gathering. We talked about the breathing techniques for dealing with COVID, and that was the bigger one. But that was a challenge. Just the whole body breathing alone was a challenge for me on its own because my body was so wanting to like squeeze in, and so I had to loosen that up first, and I used the wave to do it.
Fantastic. I like the way you said letting wave do its thing. That's a very key aspect. You're not like forcing the wave through. Go, wave, wave.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the don't
Let it do
insist-
its thing.
It's the don't insist and don't resist on the health side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, Ty Talbert, my partner from both of our first workshop with Sifu Clear together.
Oh,
Oh, you're on
Ty.
mute.
You're on mute.
I came to the wave basically like everyone else did. First of all, working with the DVDs on level 1 and then going to the wave workshop, and how it has very recently become very apparent how I can use it for self-defense, because I learned a technique last Sunday where you were taking the person striking and moving it up and then moving it down. And I watched most of the people doing it. They were just with their arm moving it up and moving it down. And I was able to do it a lot easier than the other people learning the technique because I had learned how to wave, and I'd wave their hand up and wave their hand down. And it was very simple for me to do it while everyone else was just, hey, what's going on here? But knowing how to wave, and it wasn't apparent to the other students, obviously, the other people in this group, what I was doing, because they saw me moving my hand up and moving my hand down, and they thought that was what you had to do. They didn't understand the wave part of it.
Excellent.
And
Wonderful.
even a little bit more to that is that the wave can also, someone mentioned earlier about the breath, that if you wave them up with the breath and then control the wave down with their breath, it even adds more to it.
Excellent.
Excuse
right.
me,
Go ahead.
just 1 second. I find, and I'm addressing this to Ty also and everybody, but that using the wave helps with sort of whole body connection, the wave and the breath.
Yes.
The wave doesn't have a starting or stopping point, and that should be throughout your whole body all the
Mhm.
time.
Right.
Kind of like the heart may beat, you may think of that as the start, but the blood flows throughout the whole body, and then it returns back to the heart anyway. So that wave is going through your whole body really without any starting or stopping point, even if there's a point where it might be a little more influenced. And that could be, someone pushes or punches at you, that's the point where you intercept them and you kind of influence them or displace or disrupt. Lots of different words have been used here already by different regional organizers about the effect that that would have. Now, on to Mr. Jim Kelly in Boca Raton, Florida.
Back again. The one thing I wanted to, just to make a point of is that none of us, before Tai Chi was born in a vacuum or had, we've all had different outside influences. And it's funny because I wound up, I lived on a yacht for a while, and I was a licensed captain, and I had a little bit of exposure with waves and oceanic version, and it always impressed me. Even stepping off of a solid dock onto the boat, you can feel a rhythm or a wave in the boat that you created when you touched it, and the boat would respond in a certain way, and you could tell a lot from it. When you were out on the ocean, waves were very deceiving. I think Sheila had mentioned before what happens when 2 or 3 waves meet up and join together. And I've been out on runs to the Bahamas and crossing blue water, and you have 5 to 8 foot waves, and then all of a sudden you run across a 15-footer just coming out of nowhere, and it goes on from there. You start to see these anomalies in nature. And as it relates to the Tai Chi, I think I don't know whether to describe it as being extremely fortunate or very unfortunate. I attended one of the first fighting seminars that Sifu did, Sifu Clear, and we did in the same couple of days, a hard style Tai Chi fighting, and then we did water style and ghost style. And I think the combination of doing all of that, led me to drink for 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, because so much information. But during the wave seminar, or the wave fighting portion of the seminar, he went over a couple of different concepts which had to do with wave, and one was the sloshing, where I enjoy that system of fighting, with that use of wave, because sloshing is accumulation of waves coming from all different directions, waves combining, multiplying amongst themselves, canceling themselves out, crossing from left to right, right to left, up and down. So the sloshing is a very big, part of I think the way my Tai Chi fighting has changed, because it is a real interesting concept. The other points that he made during that seminar were the drunken sailor type of fighting, where, again, experiencing it from the deck of a boat, you're not just moving laterally left to right on a sea or on waves. The boat rises and falls, and it turns one side higher than the other. So you're constantly adjusting your weight on the bottoms of your feet, and you're going forward, you're going backwards, you're going higher on one leg, shorter on the other. So that it has a lot to do with that type of being ready and being in the middle of a wave at all times, trying not to be at, as somebody mentioned, the climax of the wave or the valley of the wave. And then the last point I wanted to that we went over, or that I recall going over, like I said, it was like sipping water from a fire hydrant, but the last was the concept of what happens to water when it goes into a fixed opening, or a geyser, or a what they call them, blowholes in Hawaii, where the water is compressed and it changes the frequency of the wave, and it adds volume and pressure to the standard wave. So when you're fighting, that's I equate that a lot to the steel wrapped in cotton, where the general fighting can be a very soft, cottony feeling, and then when you change the force of the wave and the frequency of it, it's almost like pushing it through a small hole or an orifice and creating a lot more pressure behind it. So, but those, again, that was that fighting, Tai Chi fighting seminar up in Tennessee. It was extremely informative, and I had never heard Tai Chi addressed in those fashions and the fighting concept of the Tai Chi before. So it was an eye opener.
Cool.
That's right. Tennessee, the only place you'll see Tai Chi being related to a drunken sailor.
Probably.
Most likely.
Most likely. There's other places I've heard it, but it's rare.
All right. Mark, again, to you, how do you practice the wave, or when did you first learn it? How has it affected your health and training? Any of those or all of the above?
Well, I'm a lot like a cat that's used up 8 lives. So I got a lot of injuries. So, what I always start with is sung first. I try to relax first before I start doing any of that other stuff, so that I can feel the wave. And then the first thing I do once I can get some level of relaxation is I will do something physical to create a wave first, so that I can get the sense of it with my mind. It's almost kind of like to wake my brain up. I'll feel what the physical wave feels like, maybe dropping, for example, dropping and letting a force come back up. And then I'll start to use my mind to do it instead of the physical action. And then I use it for like a diagnostic to try to remove some more stuff. So I'll find things that are still tight that didn't get taken care of in my initial relaxation. And then I use the waving action to try to peel away tightness, and issues. And then when I'm working on like more of application of wave, most of the time it's going to be like Jim was saying, with the the sloshing and the the stuff from the water fight, the water boxing, the water fighting that you taught. I use that sort of stuff more for like application wise.
Mhm.
I haven't done a lot with the waving, the long and short waving you showed during the last workshop yet, because I was still trying to make sense of it in my head. If I can picture it, I can do it. If I don't have a good picture, it comes off funky, you know what I mean? And actually talking about it today helped a lot, actually. So,
Cool.
but that's kind of what I do like that. So.
All right, thank you. And now, Sifu Richard Clear, I'd be curious about how you learned weaving and how you practice it.
So everybody else weighed in already?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So when did I first see it? That is a good question. Wave is one of the 36 primary Jin in Tai Chi. And think about it as like a lot of people have heard of Peng expanding, Peng Lu Jian, Lu is rollback, that being one of them, those kinds of things. And then spiraling, and there's different aspects to that, whether it be GMC Jin, which is silk rilling energy, or coiling. Sorry, I don't know the Chinese word for that off the top of my head. That kind of thing. You've got waving, you've got rooting and dropping root. Anyways, and they're each a fundamental, and waving is one of the fundamentals. So I'm sure that the first time that I was exposed to it, it was from that standpoint of it's one of the primary Jin in Tai Chi, and this is some of how that works and that kind of a thing. And then over the years of training, I've had other teachers who were doing different things with that, including one that really embodied that waving principle to a fair extreme. And then I picked up a bunch more there, and then have got things from Uncle Bill on waving that are quite impressive and in depth. And part of it is that he spent 7-8 years as a merchant marine, which basically means like working on ships that are like cargo ships type of thing, transporting. And one of the things that you develop if you're on a ship like that all the time is you develop really great sea legs, as they call it. And that becomes really easy on land if you're martially inclined or movement inclined to turn into things like wave and different kinds of wave. And all the different kinds of expressions that can come off that water and the air and the interaction of the two. Anyway, so all of that. And then my own things since then, and just, and having fun with it in different kinds of ways, and seeing its applications in a whole bunch of different kinds of ways, and all of that. So so I can't say that there's any one influence so much as just that once I got exposed to it by the teacher that really that was kind of his thing, the one he liked the best, I guess I should say, or used the most, then just kind of I caught that bug and it kept going from there. And so I really like that one, but I like a lot of the other ones too. But wave's got some pretty cool properties to it. So yeah.
Excellent. All right. One last question with a
So
challenge.
I think we're gonna have to end. So if you
Well, my question was going to be in one sentence or less. Can anyone say what an application of laughter that they like in life? I'm sorry, an application of wave that they like in life. For me, I could say laughter. Laughter has its own wave to it, its own frequency. Does anyone have a word or a sentence at most to wrap this up? Sheila?
I'm going to have to go with riding on a swing, being on a swing. I like to be on a swing with my grandson, and I've just always enjoyed swinging. I like hammocks. I think swing would be my word.
Cool.
Excellent. Art?
Just going through life and going with rises and falls and getting along smoothly with them, calmly, sort of.
Excellent. Matt?
Well, I am a whip maker, among other things, and so I like playing with the medium and the different kinds of weaves that you can create to make sure that the wave stays more directional or has more kind of dimensionality to it, and putting together a sort of a working machine for, transforming wave energy into sound barrier breaking speed.
Awesome. Harry, a word or a sentence?
Sure. Just working on keeping the body nice and loose and flowing.
Excellent. Phil?
I'll go with body roll.
Oh, nice dancing one. Jim?
I gotta go right to the basics. Waking up every morning and laying my head back down again at night.
I thought you were going to say getting guys out of mango trees, but
No. That's those are those once.
that's 9 to 5 stuff. That's
Yeah.
The blue moon, I think. You need what's the best
All
way
right.
to get the
Mark?
guy who's spouting crazy stuff out of the mango tree? Blam blam.
it's a different kind of wave energy. Yeah.
Shockwave.
Shockwave.
Anyway,
Yeah, I
Mark,
think
a word or a
just,
sentence?
I think I kind of am in line more with Harry's answer, where it's more just trying to capture that feel of the wave in everyday life.
All right. Sifu?
I thought you would have went with the waving back and forth on your rolling chair there.
yeah. All the health stuff that comes from doing that every day. And I also like the hey, let's fight. Okay. I just like that. The response it gets. Or they go ahead and punch into it, you absorb it and then come back, and then they don't remember what happened after that. But that's all good too.
I have to admit, I did have more than one kind of scrappy kid in our kung fu class when I turned the wave on, go just drop their fists and look at me. Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Whatever you can.
Yeah.
All right. So again, if you want a class on this, it's one of the many classes that are being offered at the Clear Tai Chi International Family Gathering, June 2nd through 5th in Maryville, Tennessee. And the website for that is taichigathering.com, taichigathering.com. This was the second in our series from the regional organizers for Clear Tai Chi who are going to be offering classes at that weekend. And by all means, come out and visit us and pick up on some of that, and we'll all say hi to you and all that good stuff. So thank you, everybody. And any other last comments, you better say them now, because I think we're out.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in this discussion. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel. Good discussion.
You bet.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Remember, taichigathering.com.